We do have some breaking news right now on ABC News Live. President-elect Trump has nominated Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary. This has been a public battle playing out for this top job in the Trump administration. Scott Bessent is a hedge fund manager, a former hedge fund manager. He's been on Wall Street for several years. A frequent presence in Trump's circle and a key voice on economic policy. We had seen him as a top contender up against Howard Lutnick, who's the co-chair of Trump's transition team, also in the world of finance. He's the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, but now will be Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, and we are now confirming multiple sources tell ABC News that Scott Bessent, you can see him there on your screen, is Trump's pick to be Treasury Secretary. This is a critical role in the Trump administration and charged with executing Trump's economic agenda, everything from taxes to deregulation to how those tariffs will affect the economy and on the world stage. We know that Trump has been mulling this decision. He has been going back and forth among several contenders. But tonight we are reporting that Scott Bessent is his pick. So let's bring in our contributor, former Republican Congressman from New York, John Katko, and Democratic strategist and co-founder at Lift Our Voices, Julie Roginski. Thank you both for being here for this breaking news. John Katko, we know this was a decision Trump took very seriously. He's made a lot of these nominations at a very fast pace, but this was one that he seemed to be really considering, aware perhaps of just how big of a job this post of Treasury Secretary is when it comes to the economy and it comes to his economic agenda.
Oh, it's a huge job, and it's going to be a very important job. And this is the end result of a political cage match that was probably unprecedented amongst all the other attempted cabinet positions or projected cabinet positions. There's a lot of people that wanted this job. There's a lot of infighting going on with it, a lot of jockeying. And you can't say that it's a bad pick in that he has spent his life in this field. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to implement Trump's policy, whether people like it or not. They elected Trump to do things with respect to Treasury and Commerce and the other cabinet level positions that are going to impact the economy. And he's clearly going to have marching orders to loosen the reins and let free market principles prevail. And for most people, it's probably going to be a good thing. And I bet you the markets are going to react favorably.
I was just looking, of course, the markets are closed. Futures won't open until Sunday night, but this is a pick. A lot of the investors, traders I talked to say he would be seen as someone a little bit more stable, someone who perhaps wouldn't want to go to the extreme when it comes to some of Trump's economic policies, like those universal tariffs. Maybe would be a voice who might tone that down a little bit, but certainly would promote his agenda when it comes to tax cuts, less regulation. What do you think of this pick, Julie?
Well, it's interesting because Wall Street, of course, would react with complete disfavor to the kind of protectionist policies that Trump is talking about. And I would assume that if Wall Street futures do indeed open up higher on Sunday, and I expect they will, this would be a signal that Trump is backing off from those tariffs, those vast 100% tariffs on China and those tariffs on other countries that he kept talking about. It's also interesting to see how the economy is going to react to his mass deportation plan and what Wall Street thinks of this pick, because Wall Street, of course, understands the horrible impact, economic impact, that deporting 15 million undocumented immigrants would have on this economy. And that and the trade policies together would tank the markets. So I think from a markets perspective and a Wall Street perspective, though not from a MAGA perspective, this is a pick that's going to make conservatives with a small c happier than they will the MAGA diehards who, of course, truly believe that Trump was going to do what he said he was going to do, which is whatever it takes, whatever it costs. He was going to put tariffs on China, put tariffs on Mexico, deport 15 million people. And of course, we all know what that would do to the stock market if that were to actually take place.
Yeah, notable. Some of the other contenders we know who had been in the running for this job, Kevin Warsh, she's a former Federal Reserve official, potentially now a contender to replace the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, when his term is up. Trump has made it clear he's not a huge fan of Jerome Powell at the moment. Another contender had been the CEO of Apollo, huge Wall Street firm. So what does it say to you, John Katko, these close ties and Trump's affection for the stock market that he made very clear he likes to see the stock market at highs, even though, frankly, a lot of his economic policies are at odds with what a lot of big companies, Fortune 500 companies or small businesses would want, like those tariffs?
Yeah, I think Julie hit it really perfectly on the head when she said that maybe this is a sobering up of campaign promises that God knows a lot of presidential candidates make campaign promises that they don't keep. Maybe he heard enough from people after the campaign about how calamitous, at least in the short term, huge tariffs would be on our economy when we import so much from other countries, in particular China. So, a hedge fund manager, people that are in the markets who know the markets inside and out, if you're putting them to the high level cabinet positions, that's probably a sign that you haven't converted them, but they've converted you.
Right. Let's get ABC News White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks in on this conversation. She joins us now on the phone. Mary Alice, this was a very public battle that played out for this nomination, and now Trump's made his pick. What does this mean for his transition? This was kind of one of the main key posts that he had been left to fill at this point.
Yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth. It's probably the most high-profile pick that still needed to be filled. And look, so interesting that it was a public fight around this. These are nominations that often get debated behind closed doors, very secretively. But of course, we remember when Elon Musk was tweeting who he thought should get the job. It's interesting to think about this Trump team coming back to the White House. We remember during the first administration that it was a team that was often that often really struggled with public fights, sort of jockeying for power, who was in, who was out. A lot of questions and a lot of sort of memories sort of resurfaced about sort of that culture of Trump's teams around this Treasury pick. I think part of this final decision, though, sort of does echo what you've been talking about already, that at the end of the day, sort of some of the more traditional voices seem to have won out. I mean, I think out of a lot of the names that we had heard floated, this will be seen on Capitol Hill as one of the more traditional picks, less likely than others to rock the boat. Still a lot of questions, of course, tough questions about how he would follow through on some of Trump's campaign promises, like you've been talking about, around everything from tariffs to immigration to cryptocurrency. But I think that compared to others, he will be seen as someone that is Wall Street friendly and a more moderating voice potentially.
Yeah, this is a big job when it comes to the economy, which we know from exit polling in the election, from from talking to voters, is really so many people's number one issue. What is the Treasury Secretary kind of tasked with when it comes to following through on some of those promises? Just give us the picture of what this job does when it comes to those promises that Trump made out on the campaign trail.
Yeah, but I have to say, Elizabeth, I feel weird answering that question back to you. You are such our expert in-house. But, in layman's terms, someone who is the face of the administration, not only when we think about Wall Street, but also internationally, setting policy, economic policy for the country. And you're right, of course, we talked to voters around the country, and they answered in our polls about how the economy and how they were struggling with inflation and rising costs was the number one issue going into this race. There's not one simple silver bullet to bring down inflation and actually, as we've talked about for a long time on our air, inflation rates have been slowing. But to get at that more intangible frustration that voters have had with the economy, there's a wide range of policy proposals that are out there, everything from expanding energy production to those tariffs. And so it's going to be up to the Treasury Secretary to figure out with the president-elect where to prioritize attention and where to sort of pitch those economic proposals to the markets and abroad.
Mary Alice, I appreciate they'll always go in on the weeds with me when it comes to economic policy and the role of the Treasury Department. Mary Alice Parks, John Katko, Julie Rienzi, thank you all so much.